On this Monday edition of Golf Central, Phil Mickelson makes his way to the mountains of West Virginia for the Greenbrier Classic, his first PGA Tour event without caddy Jim Bones Mackay.
From devastation to renovation, we have all the details on how the Greenbrier came back from a catastrophic flood to host this week's PGA Tour stop in West Virginia.
Also ahead, besides the home cooking, what will it take for Rory McIlroy to defend his title this week in Northern Ireland?
Plus, just in time for July 4th, Danielle Kane gives American golf a shot in the arm. But will it be enough for her to wear red, white, and blue at next month's Solheim Cup? It's all coming up now on Golf Central.
Golf Central. Brought to you by Titleist.
In June of 2016, 10 inches of rain fell in the White Sulphur Springs area of West Virginia in just 12 hours, causing a deadly flood that took 23 lives and resulted in hundreds of millions of dollars in property damage. The Greenbrier Resort was not immune, much of the course underwater, which caused the cancellation of the 2016 Greenbrier Classic. However, the tournament is back this week amongst the mountains of West Virginia. Hi there, thanks for teaming up with us here on Golf Central. Todd Lewis with Tim Rosafort. And Tim, those terrible memories of last year will not go away. However, with the return of the Greenbrier Classic, I'm sure it's going to help with the healing. How did officials get this golf course ready for a PGA Tour event?
Todd, all the credit goes to Josh Pope and his staff of about 80 workers. They worked 7 days a week, 12 to 15 hours a day, just the golf course, to get the golf course back in condition to not only host the resort guests, but also obviously a PGA Tour event. Pope called it a gigantic undertaking because, as we heard from reporting after the devastation, that there was some doubts as to whether this would be ready in 2017. Pope said the emotions are overflowing this week, and you can imagine it took him a month to just do the cleanup. Over 4 feet of silt on the 16th fairway alone, Todd, and they found mattresses, toys, even bodies on the property during the cleanup part of it.
And that's the bigger story, is the recovery from all of this damage. But there is a golf course to be played, and they had to get it ready. And I'm guessing this golf course now, Tim, is different. Is it?
Well, it's incredibly it's different in a sense, Todd. There are some adjustments that were made to the golf course by Keith Foster, and he wanted to go back to a little bit more of the C.B. McDonald, Seth Rayner look that the old white used to have. In particular, you've covered the event. You know, there's that hump in the middle of the 18th green in a par 3. That has been taken out. It looks from the air like more of a thumbprint, sort of in the McDonald Rayner style and vein. But for the most part, it's going to look like the old white the last time a PGA Tour event was there, which is just incredible considering the devastation that golf course went through.
And hats off, by the way, to Jim Justice, the owner of the Greenbrier Resort, who is now the governor of West Virginia, pulling that community together, pulling that state together. And we're wishing them a tremendous week up in West Virginia. Thank you, Tim. We'll have an in-depth story, by the way, on last year's devastating West Virginia flood, how the Greenbrier Resort is playing a big role in restoring the community. That'll be tomorrow on Golf Central, 6 p.m. Eastern Time. All right, let's talk about the headlines. Phil Mickelson in the field at the Greenbrier Classic. It will be Phil's first start since the joint announcement that he and caddy Jim Bones Mackay will no longer work together. Phil's brother Tim Mickelson on the bag for the rest of the year. Tomorrow, final qualifying taking place in the UK for the Open at Royal Birkdale. 15 spots up for grabs. 4 players at the Greenbrier Classic, by the way, will earn spots along with 3 players at the Dubai Duty-Free Irish Open. And that European Tour event is taking place in Northern Ireland, and for the 3rd consecutive year, Rory McIlroy will serve as host. He's also the defending champion. And for more on the week to come, here's Matt and Tripp.
Todd, thank you very much. Tripp, when you hear what Todd just said, Rory is not only the defending champion, he's also the host of the event this week at Port Stewart in Northern Ireland. Either one of those roles would be enough to distract you, and yet the last time we saw Rory, it was at the Travelers, and he was trying to decide what the putter would be that he would put into his hands. Where would you put all of that at this point?
Well, I think he's used to doing the hosting duties. This is, you know, he's had many years of that under his belt. Defending a title is always fun, and for Rory McIlroy. But I think the putter carousel is a little more of an issue for him because Look, he's trying to find a similar type putter in the TaylorMade model. He tried the putter that Dustin Johnson and Jason Day and John Rahm have all used, that putter that's so stable with the moment of inertia. But you can see, I mean, this guy can still shoot great scores not putting well. That's how strong a ball striker Rory McIlroy is. The thing about it, too, though, I like the changes that were made last year right away. Some of the putts that we saw him missing at the PGA, et cetera, and we, of course, know he won the FedEx Cup. But there's one thing that Rory McIlroy can always draw, and I've mentioned the great ball striking. You know, we saw him at the Honda Classic several years ago hit a shot that few players in the world could hit. Here's another example of that last year when he was coming into the par 5, a beautiful 5-wood to just tap in range. That's amazing stuff. Rory McIlroy's always got that. He just needs to putt a little bit better than average. That's all he's got to do. He putts better than average, and he's going to blow fields away. And, oh, by the way, Matt, he's done that several times in his career, a couple of majors by 8 shots. You're not a poor putter if you can do that.
What's interesting about the Irish Open this week, too, is that when we talk about events being important in the run that we're on, bear in mind that this is the second of 3 weeks in the brand new Rolex series on the European Tour, and this starts for the first time ever a links run-up to the Open. Irish Open this week, the Scottish Open next week, and then, of course, the Open at Royal Birkdale, all in the mix. So there's a lot on Rory's shoulders, a great field assembled at Port Stewart. There's something else going on this week, too. This is a new competitive life for Phil Mickelson. This is his first week without Bones Mackay on the bag. Yeah,
it is. And you know, I think part of this was, I don't know if we'll ever know the real story of what happened, but it was an amicable split. It shows the good friends that Phil and Bones always were and how much they meant to each other over the course of Phil's 42 career victories. I still think there's plenty of gas left in Phil's tank, provided he stays injury-free, and he looks to be doing that. The problem for Phil has been, it hasn't been the under-par holes that he's been doing. He's 9th in birdies on the PGA Tour. He's 8th in eagles. His problem is all the bogeys that he makes. I think Tim and Phil are going to get along great. They love each other. They're brothers. They're very close. So this is a great relationship, and I think part of this may be Phil might start paring down his schedule a little bit to make him a little more ultra-competitive around the majors. We know Phil Mickelson, I think, I've said this for many years, I think he can win into his 50s. I really do. He's that talented. The short game's that good. He's just got to eliminate those bogeys and double bogeys that he's been making.
To that point that you were talking about his brother Tim and the love for him, he had this quote. He said, quote, "There's nobody I like or love or respect more than Tim, and for us to have this time together for the rest of the year is something that I will cherish." It will be very interesting indeed to see how it plays out.
Well, it does. And let's focus a little bit on this week. Now, Phil has not played well here. He missed the cut here in 11. He missed the cut here in 12. And he missed the cut the last time he was here in 2013. And so Phil has not had good success on this golf course. And I think it's a golf course that should fit him. You know, it's one of those creative type golf courses, not one of the longer golf courses on the PGA Tour. So I'm a little surprised that Phil's had weekends off there. I look for that to change this year. I think with the new caddy on the bag, and, you know, Phil Mickelson, he's going to get rid of the double bogeys and bogeys this week. He's not going to have many of them, and he's going to be around for the weekend.
So, Todd, maybe it's just about a new perspective for Phil Mickelson. We will find out this week.
On June 19th, just 3 weeks after being arrested for driving under the influence in Jupiter, Florida, Tiger Woods announced on Twitter he was receiving professional help to manage the medications he takes to deal with his back pain and sleep disorder. Well, today he provided this update via Twitter, saying, "I recently completed an out-of-state private intensive program. I will continue to tackle this going forward with my doctors, family, and friends. I am so very thankful for all of the support I've received." Coming up on Golf Central, Kyle Stanley wins the Quicken Loans National for just his second PGA Tour title. Why was he so emotional after the victory? Danielle Kang takes the KPMG Women's PGA Championship. Is she now speeding on the highway to becoming an American star? Plus, the Open is just over 2 weeks away. Which player will have the edge at Royal Birkdale to keep the first-time major winner streak alive?
Golf Central is brought to you by Titleist, the #1 ball at the Quicken Loans National. Golf Now VIP. Say goodbye to convenience fees.